brother. What you gonna do, brother? Oh, yeah. Are you ready? Hey, yo. And that's the bottom line. Shut that control into a nosedive. Woo!
Well, all I can say is someone's been eating their vitamins and saying their prayers.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
You're next. What? Oh, that's the Goldberg taking it out. Goldberg just feared the Rock.
That's cheap, plain and simple.
Rest in peace.
Welcome to the GM Report. I'm your host, IAmGoodOlJM, coming to you from GM Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And this is episode 96 on this June 6, 2020. Almost said July for some reason. I guess I'm just hoping things will move faster in certain ways, but we're still in June. Barely got started with June. And considering so much craziness going on in the world, but mostly for positive reasons as well, don't get me wrong. Change for the better. And if anyone's ever wondered or just in general, what does JM stand with all this? Well, change is good. My only complaint about it is that unfortunately it took this long for any kind of changes to take place for the better for everyone, not just a certain amount of people, or depending where you're from, where you live, lifestyles or whatnot. No, in general, change is better for the people. And of course, I'm referring to the George Floyd protesting and unfortunately, some who take advantage of it and start rioting and basically are in the city wars with the police. But thankfully, it hasn't been any serious reports as far as looting or rioting for the past couple of days. There are still clashes with police, basically in every state, every city that's been hosting protests, and around the world too. That's how big this message has gotten. How much the story and the unfortunate and tragic death of George Floyd and the manner that his life ended has impacted the world. And like I said, change is good in this case. And of course, there have been a lot more stories that have been revealed the past few days, other similar incidences where unfortunately unarmed men and women, their lives have been taken by police under ridiculous circumstances and not following proper protocol, including the situation with George Floyd. But I'm glad to see and finally hear that officials are finally stepping in to ban such a tactic, such a defense maneuver, if you will, from the way police handle perpetrators or handle suspects that are going to be in their custody, whether they're in handcuffs or whether they're trying to detain them, not to use any part of their body, the police that is, to prevent them from being choked, from being able to breathe, whether it's in the throat area, the chest, the rib cage, behind the shoulders and the back, but basically where you inhale oxygen and parts of your body inflate. Yeah, those parts should not be in any way blocked off from having any kind of oxygen flowing through the body. And I don't know, this is why I'm not a doctor, folks, but also preventing from your heart still beating. Not to mention the brain functioning. Not only does it need air, but it needs blood to flow there too. So, not to make this too much of a political episode, but I'm glad changes are being made. Finally, we'll see where everything stands in the next few days. I dare say to the end of the year. There's still that COVID thing going on. Hopefully, even though there have been spikes here and there in different parts of the country, because of the protesting and because of the rioting and the looting, there have been spikes and new cases of new citizens, or citizens nonetheless, but new cases, new patients, unfortunately getting infected by the virus, and now they're being recommended to quarantine for the next couple of weeks, and also to be tested. I just wish everybody was a little bit smarter in their protesting. I understand frustration and emotions would get the better of anyone, and if we get the little details, that's not always considered something they do on their regular basis or something normal that they do from their day-to-day lives. But hopefully, besides the changes, this is more so of a learning experience as well. And sure enough, WWE had their own statement about all this, which I'll get into a little bit later on. As this week, I didn't find too many interesting stories to report on. Otherwise, I would have at least nearly a dozen pages full of stories to put out here. But not this week's not the case. Not so much. It also kind of gives me a break as well, having a long week of work, very demanding in the physical matter. But I survived, made it through the weekend, and we'll do it again this coming Monday. So with that said, how about we start off on a light note? WWE, after seemingly forever, but realistically it's been maybe about a year and a half, maybe a couple of years, that there were going to be tiers or options how to purchase the WWE Network. And it was revealed this week during their USA Network and Fox TV shows that there's going to be, or there is, a free version of the WWE Network. No credit card required. You just sign up, log in as if it's a regular social media page, for example, and you're free to roam around the network. But the limitations, because there's always a catch when something's free. And the details came out through the week. Basically, the return of Raw Talk that goes on the network right after Raw goes off the air on the USA Network. It's the Raw Talk show finally back. I always thought between Raw Talk and Smack Talk, I thought it was a good addition to both shows. It kind of gave that aftermath sports-like feel when the show was over. See where, keeping it kayfabe too, but to see where each superstar stood, depending on what angle, what viral storyline they were following. I thought, of course, everybody remembers the back and forth emotional rants between The Miz and Daniel Bryan before Bryan was reinstated to be able to wrestle again, and just how real it felt. Even though it's mostly one-sided, and they really didn't get into the angle to be picked up once Bryan was reinstated back into the ring until months after the fact, and then Bryan turned heel. But I missed this the first debuting or re-debut of the Raw Talk show this week, but I'm pretty sure if they go back to that status, to that tactic, and keep it on with hey, this feels like it really happened, but unfortunately, recent storylines don't really generate that much interest from a lot of the fans. Like what's going on SmackDown with the comedic tactics that Miz and Morrison are pulling on or trying to pull on Braun Strowman. Does anyone really care or become interested how Braun Strowman is going to react to the rent-a-car company that the windshield was damaged? Or is Nickelodeon even going to realize that some of the slime is missing? So anyway, Raw Talk was part of the deal for the free WWE Network. Also, and this is from their own press release, and I'm still, if anyone can help me figure out what award that they're exactly referring to, but WWE has unveiled the free version of WWE Network, the company's award-winning digital streaming service, unlocking a vast portion of its content library with more than 15,000 action-packed WWE titles now available for free, no credit card required. As I mentioned, Raw Talk will be available in this version of the network. Also, the Monday Night War series, Ride Along, Table for Three, Photo Shoot, and Story Time, along with, depending when you sign up, the most 10 recent episodes of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, where in the $10 monthly service, you can actually go back all the way to the original episode 1 of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. But here they're offering the 10 recent episodes. So basically, you can keep up. If you miss it, if you don't have DVRs, you have the free version of the network. Well, you can just catch up on the streaming service. Commercial free. Well, it's free, so everybody wins. Not to mention the historic events of pay-per-views between WWE and NXT, the takeover events, the weekly highlights of the top 10, WWE's Bump, Now, the best of WWE, and Timeline. And also, again, depending when you sign up, so moving forward, if this is going to be offering the free service, that is, moving forward for the next few years, the 5 recent WrestleManias of that point will be available to you on the free version of the network. So basically, the free version doesn't offer that much of content compared to what you would get paying $10 a month, which is basically everything. So why now? Is this a response or reaction to the lack of audience and rating, the ones that don't really care about anymore, dropping as of late? Sure, there's been on a seesaw the past few weeks, but let's face it, for those who follow and even concerned about it, the numbers ratings-wise aren't doing so well. Was this going to be revealed eventually, despite what's been going on with COVID? Well, not too many of those questions are going to be answered anytime soon, at least not since Monday night when it was revealed the first time. But according to the Executive Vice President of Events Media in WWE, Mr. Donlan, saying that the launch of the free version of the network is the key component of our company's digitalization strategy and a new way for the fans to be able to experience the premium WWE content. And of course, he explains how to access it and blah, blah, blah. Like we don't know how to do that. Well, in hindsight, it's something, especially for recent fans, that may not even have a clue what was the Attitude Era or what really was the Monday Night War. And they can see firsthand with themselves if they take up on the free network version of this. But again, I still think that the $10 or $9.99, whatever you want to call it, it's a steal with everything that's provided, everything that's made available once you sign up and you start paying those monthly fees. And on top of that, you get those free pay-per-views. I mean, technically they're not free, but there's no additional charge. Look at me, I sound like an infomercial. There's no additional charge, and you just watch as you go. And of course, there's the on-demand service. So, who was it that used that tagline? Anytime, anywhere. But basically, this is what it is. This is what they're doing, and I think it benefits all parties involved. If you're a fan, I say go for it. You want to add more to your repertoire as far as following or being a member of the WWE Network, go ahead and cough up that $10 a month. If you're able to, I say do it. According to Wrestle Inc., it's been reported Adam Cole, the current NXT champion, has yet to re-sign with the WWE/NXT, as his current deal expires in the next month and a half, or in August to be exact, which could potentially mean if he doesn't re-sign, the contract is officially expired and more than likely will not be affected or will not be affected at all by the 90-day no-compete clause. And come August, be a free agent. And of course, if this happens, and everybody's already talking about this, oh, let Adam Cole go to AEW. If there were no plans ever, and this is for me hard to believe that there will not be any kind of plans to move up Adam Cole to the main roster of Raw, SmackDown, especially on SmackDown. I mean, there's so many potential dream matches there. We've seen the Daniel Bryan, Adam Cole a couple of years ago on SmackDown before Survivor Series, and then AJ Styles, quote, traded to Raw. And how many, well, they can have one long epic angle for the either Intercontinental or the SmackDown Universal title. And that feud could last for quite some time, especially if Cole comes with the Undisputed Era. Again, you got 4 potential guys there if they can remain injury-free for the long run. How many mix and matches of potential dream matches, and I'm overusing that term now, between Fish, Cole, O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Shinsuke Nakamura, Cesaro, on and on and on. And that's just to name a few guys. And making SmackDown once again the show to watch between all 3. But again, according to Wrestle Inc., Michael Cole. Wow, I did not just do that. Adam Cole is not the only person from NXT. Might be considered to be called up to the main roster. That's assuming, again, if Adam Cole does resign, and it all depends what happens this tomorrow night, actually, for NXT Takeover in Your House. But among other names mentioned, if Adam Cole resigns, but a potential call up to the main roster, along with the Velveteen Dream, again, depending what the results are for tomorrow night, and Io Shirai. And I think that particular move is long overdue. Io Shirai, for a while last year, was very unhappy with how things were going with her position in the company of NXT. And was given at the time, was turned heel and was put in the title picture despite not ever winning it from either Rhea Ripley or, in this case now, Charlotte. But gave us something. It kept her more relevant than before, and I guess it was enough for Io Shirai to stick around, and now a possible, quote, promotion to the main roster. So all eyes post NXT takeover in Your House, or what happens and the fate decided between Adam Cole and NXT. And if he does stick around, where's he going to go? I say SmackDown. Velveteen Dream can head over to Raw. Io Shirai can spice things up on SmackDown and in the women's division there, I believe. So many possibilities, endless ones at that. But it's definitely, on this front, very interesting and a bit of exciting. Thank goodness for this story, as Rob Gronkowski is no longer under contract with the WWE. Whew, thank God. According to numerous reports, this past week on Raw, Gronkowski, after losing the 24/7 championship back to R-Truth, Gronkowski had a release clause in his contract, and he exercised that right in order to return to the NFL and play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, I unfortunately do not have a football expert on hand right now. Hell, I probably should have had one weeks ago when Gronkowski was, quote, hosting WrestleMania. And even at that time, there was speculations of what is he going to do as far as his NFL career goes. And then all of a sudden, the whole Tom Brady stuff, signing with Tampa Bay, and all of a sudden Gronkowski signs with Tampa Bay as well. And how often do you hear about, oh, just in case, put in there an out clause or release clause, just in case. I don't know how well he was doing financially while being on a WWE contract and what he wasn't doing in the meantime when he was still the 24/7 champion, obviously, besides NFL training camp. But what exactly was the long-term idea here for Gronk? And honestly, I didn't see any potential in him whatsoever as far as a pro wrestler goes. And if it was going to be anything near like the Mojo Rawley experiment, then everybody was doomed from day one. I'm not saying he would not have tried to do his best, but honestly, I didn't see it. I don't see it today. He's a hell of a football player, don't get me wrong. But overall, I just, no. No, no, no. And thankfully, this nightmare is over. And we can actually get some more entertaining value when it comes to the 24/7 title with R-Truth as champion. And even though that particular title has been looked at, and it didn't take long shortly after it was debuted, to be looked at as a joke, as a gag, filler during when Raw actually had audiences in the arena, how they would interact in and out of the crowd, and in and out of the venue, backstage, parking lots, on all that stuff, and it just made it more fun. It just actually made it entertaining as what they were looking for. But in a similar fashion, how Lesnar was the champion, either one, Universal or WWE, Gronk disappears, takes a title with them, and is not here from in weeks, a couple of months. Imagine if Brock Lesnar had an out clause or a release clause in his contract, and like, screw it, I'm not being used. You guys are paying me anyway. Here's your title belt, your title back. So release me. Only difference there, I don't think Lesnar would not have gone back to MMA, but it is what it is. So goodbye, Gronk. Thanks for not sticking around in a long run, and we'll see how football goes when they actually decide to reopen the season and how they're going to move forward with that. Some good news for the Bobby Fulton camp. It was reported about a little less than a year ago that he was diagnosed with throat cancer. But according to Bobby Fulton himself, he's taken a positive step towards that battle, and he shared on his Twitter that most of his cancer is almost gone. Of course, he's been on a treatment for it, and I don't know too much about throat cancer. I mean, I don't want to say cancer is cancer, but it affects everybody differently, especially what type it is, and especially what stage you're in. But more specifically, he was first diagnosed less than a year ago. Let me rephrase that. Less than a year ago. I want to say last November, December, give or take. Fast forward about 7-8 months. That's an amazing accomplishment. If you look at it about 5-10 years ago, anyone in Bobby Fulton's position would have taken maybe a few more years. Still battling, no doubt, but taking a couple more years to be where he is now. So thankfully, whatever treatment he's been receiving has been helping him a lot. Hopefully, for his sake and his family, real soon we'll get to hear the story that he's gotten rid of all of the throat cancer. I'm not sure if by this particular cancer, if you can say that you are in remissions or it's completely gone. Again, this is why I'm not a doctor, but with some more time and effort and more of a fight still to come for Mr. Fulton, here's to him feeling better and getting well soon. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said about Jinder Mahal. He recently returned to Monday Night Raw about a month ago and seemingly going for a babyface push. But that all went downhill. It took a horrible turn as he put out a statement on his Instagram recently saying, "Unfortunately, I had to go under the knife again to fix some knee issues. The journey has hit a speed bump, but I will be back stronger than ever." I mean, it's a bummer. It sucks. Anyone has to go under a knife, regardless of how long you've been in the business, or it's something you've been putting off for some time, and you chose now to step aside and fix this and come back better than ever. It's not too many times we hear a story that someone makes a comeback and less than a week or so later, you're not on TV anymore, and then we find out something like this. It sucks, man. I mean, personally, looking at it from a spectator's point of view, while being a fan of pro wrestling in general, when Jinder Mahal was WWE champion for those few months, as a heel, it worked, and understandably, the reasons behind it, it's different, someone new. If you really don't follow or don't accept the fact that it was a marketing ploy to get over in India because Jinder Mahal's background and all that to start touring out there, have live events and so on and so forth in that part of the world. It's not the first time it happened. It really isn't, and it won't, and it definitely won't be the last. It's not often really that we don't have, whether it's Universal or WWE champion, and the champions are not from the United States. Sometimes they got to venture, of course, the company that is, they got to venture into different territories or renew, or let's bring it up a little bit. Let's raise the meter somewhat in this territory or in this part of the world. So let's find out whomever's from there, whoever's nationality it is that we have under contract, make them a champion. And it doesn't have to be WWE or Universal. There could be a women's champion, could be the Intercontinental. Being the U.S. champion, I don't think will work as well. But again, they got to try. But unfortunately, again, Jinder Mahal's going to be out for a while. Not much detail from his Instagram story ever since earlier this week. Yeah, he had been previously sidelined a year ago, matter of fact, with a prior knee injury, and he was back on TV just a couple of months ago. Mahal, that is, he did mention on an interview with WrestlingRumors.net he was cleared and waiting to get the callback to be on television. Dave Meltzer would chime in and said it was reported that WWE was interested in proceeding with Mahal as a babyface moving forward instead of a typical hero character, and those wheels were set in motion. But again, fate intervened, and now if those plans are on hold, great for Mahal. If not, who knows what plans they'll have for him if any changes are made when he comes back. Last week I mentioned it wasn't officially announced when and where AEW's Fyter Fest will take place. Well, now we know, as it was mentioned this past week on Dynamite, Fyter Fest will now be a 2-night event airing on TNT July 1st and July 8th. It will not be a independent show this year, but rather a 2-week special on AEW Dynamite. The change is more than likely, and obviously because of the pandemic, and that fans will not be able to attend. But so far, matches confirmed is AEW champion Jon Moxley defending against Brian Cage. And for the tag team championships will be Kenny Omega and Adam Page taking on Best Friends. Speaking of AEW, seemingly, well, not out of nowhere, but he has his reasons why. But AEW president Tony Khan has banned the former Mrs. Linda Hogan from attending any and all AEW events forever. Now, first of all, when I heard this, what has Linda Hogan, which is not the name she's going on the, by the way, now I don't even know what the hell it is now, but what has Linda Hogan contribute to the wrestling business, if ever? So here's what happened. She jumped on Twitter, Linda Hogan that is, and shared a not so nice comments regarding the protesting that's been going on, saying, watching the looting, it's all Afro-Americans, not sure how robbing and stealing set the record straight, but if they want to be heard, they need to be civilized. Well, I don't even know what the hell she was trying to accomplish by making that statement. Clearly, I mean, with the looting, everyone, I don't see common sense. Looting really doesn't resolve anything. That does not get any message across, good or bad. So, okay, I get that front. But everything else, I strongly disagree with, or it's all, African Americans, which is not how she described it here, but no, it's not. It's not all African Americans that are looting. It's not all African Americans that are destroying property, setting buildings on fire, and having standoff with the police. No. There are other troublemakers out there that are not African Americans that are doing the same thing as far as setting buildings on fire, destroying businesses, the same businesses that are people that are trying to get back to after being out of a job for who knows how long, and now they got to recover. So Tony Khan, who's never been shy to call out anyone on their bullshit, saw this, or at least was brought to his attention, and caught wind of Linda Hogan's inaccurate remarks before shooting her a reply stating that, along with your ex-husband, are now both banned from attending any AEW shows in the upcoming future. Well, take that, I guess, Linda Hogan. But really, it's like, you know what? He's the president of a wrestling company that's still very young, still trying to find its footing in the long term of the pro wrestling business, and I still believe it can be very successful and reach the heights of beyond whatever, let's say, Impact was trying to do, despite them still surviving to this point. But let's face it, the harder Impact or TNA tried, the more they fell down the hill. AEW has a tremendous backing, has a tremendous following, and despite the slowdown a bit, it goes across the board. The pandemic slowed down a lot of businesses, and AEW is no different. But eventually, everything will pick up again, get back to quote unquote normal, or the new normal, whatever that's going to be for everybody, and they'll be successful. But when it comes to ridiculous comments from this person, who ended up taking more than 70% of Hulk Hogan's asset during the divorce hearing and trial, the hell you doing making ridiculous comments like that? Sounds like someone else that's also used to be in some way, shape, or form affiliated with the WWE back in the day, making ridiculous comments on Twitter and try to get attention again. Well, assuming this is the last time we hear about anything from Linda Hogan, it'll be the last time I mention her on my show, that's for sure. So screw off. The WWE has been the latest company to come out and support the protesting that's been going on around the world, condemning the murder of George Floyd, which normally, and I'm gonna be as fair-minded as possible about this, so bear with me. So WWE has come out as one of the latest companies to voice their opinion publicly. They stand against what happened to George Floyd and the manner that it did, with a statement this past week on all of their social media platforms, saying WWE supports an inclusive society and condemns racial injustice. We stand beside our Black performers, employees, and fans around the world and encourage everyone to use their voice to speak out against racism. We offer our sincere condolences to the family of George Floyd and the families of countless others who have lost their lives due to senseless violence. Well, one little minor nitpick there about that. It was a little bit more than just an act of senseless violence. It was being in the custody of police. But despite that, WWE, among other companies, such as most recently the NFL, have come out and voiced their opinion to stand against racial injustice. But you do notice, and I'm going to say it, a lot of these companies are not mentioning specifically against police forces. Well, that's because they got to work with a lot of them, especially if one NFL team is visiting another visiting team stadium or whatnot. Sometimes they'll need more than just security, and they will need the police force. So if you're out there trashing them on social media because of what happened with George Floyd and other incidences before, and God forbid anyone after, they're probably not going to be too fond of you talking all that shit about them, the police force, and then expect them to cooperate with you when it comes to police protection. If that's the case, I get it. But at the same time, let's not be too naive and just mention the obvious. George Floyd didn't die because of a random or just out of the blue senseless act of violence from another citizen or some guy in the wrong neighborhood or whatever. He was in police custody. Nevertheless, if anyone ever wondered how would WWE react to this, well, there's the statement in black and white, literally. And for the longest time since this whole pandemic thing started, I'm referring to it now as I have been for the past couple of weeks here on the JM Report. That's because I didn't want to mention it. I was trying to avoid stating the obvious that's been impacting the entire world, because every day there'll be different numbers of how many deaths there have been. Here in the States, we surpassed over 100,000 people just a couple of weeks ago. I was in a frame of mind where, well, if you watch and follow the news every day on your own time and you listen to my show, do you need to be reminded of that? Probably not. I know I wouldn't. But for me, unfortunately, it's more reality than I can give it credit for, because you had the pandemic, and then on Memorial Day, we all saw, I'm sure by now, all the different angles of the George Floyd videos while he was in police custody, as we all bear witness to his last words and his final moments on earth, which led to the protesting, which led to all the changes that are happening now. And of course, a few, to be nice about it, a few knuckleheads who are taking advantage of everyone else's frustrations and emotions and be a bunch of bad seeds and cause destruction. Again, there haven't been any reports that I know of in the past couple of days, at least not around my neck of the woods. But if you're going to put out a statement like this and acknowledge where you stand with your employees, with your performers, and the fans around the world that are of African American descent, and point the finger at your public relations person, like, state what's happening, but don't state the obvious. That's what I find a problem with. It may not make sense to a lot of people, but again, if you're going to put out an official statement, then tell us where you really stand. It's great that you're against senseless violence, against racial injustice. Who wouldn't be? Well, obviously, the ones that stand on the opposite end of the line. But let's not be naive. Let's not sugarcoat it. I'm against police brutality. I'm against the police taking matters into their own hands and thinking that they're beyond the law and forgetting the oath that they cited when they were sworn in. Men and women who wear the badge. But at least as far as WWE goes, it's a step in the right direction. And there have been some of their performance, as they put it, speak out. Titus O'Neil, for those who are not from the Florida area, specifically in the Tampa area, Titus O'Neil was holding a press conference. He was invited to speak alongside the police chief and other city officials, and he was speaking out, demanding the stop of the senseless violence and rioting. I want to say it helped, especially after the 3 remaining officers were finally arrested and finally charged. The looting and the violence didn't ease up right away, but it eventually did. And now we're back to mostly peaceful protesting. So don't think that if you're standing on anywhere around the world and thinking that this is something that will never happen to you, well, that's wishful thinking. But then again, it could happen to someone you do know. And I've always said, well, at least to people that know me, I've always said that the next reaction, for example, to something similar to what happened to Mr. George Floyd, whatever reaction you will have next is usually the correct one. But if it's a reaction where you're going to hurt someone else physically out of frustration or cause any damage or destruction, then no, you're completely wrong. NXT TakeOver in Your House takes place tomorrow night on the WWE Network at 7 p.m. Eastern. And the card is as follows. May not sound like much, but I think they will do a lot with little. In no particular order, for the NXT Championship will be a backlot brawl between champion Adam Cole versus the Velveteen Dream. For the NXT Women's Championship in a triple threat match, Charlotte Flair will defend against Rhea Ripley and Io Shirai. Karrion Kross along with Scarlett versus Tommaso Ciampa. For the North American Championship, Keith Lee defends against Johnny Gargano. Finn Balor will get his chance at redemption versus Damian Priest. And in a 6-women tag team match, Mia Yim, Tegan Nox, and Shotzi Blackheart will take on Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez. And I've heard, I only read the headlines. I didn't get a chance to read the actual story, but I heard that Todd Pengill, one of WWF's at the time in the mid-90s, one of the WWF pay-per-view hosts from when the original In Your House pay-per-view series took place, Todd Pettengill will return and be either a host or an interviewer backstage during this version of In Your House for NXT Takeover. So there you go, a little bit of nostalgia mixed in with today's version of WWE, or in this case NXT, and for me it's more than a welcome back. And why isn't this man even considered to be in the Hall of Fame? You know what? He still got it. He's still a fan. He still follows the business. I understand he's still in contact with many of the higher ups in WWE and a lot of its talents ever since. So a great addition it would be to have Todd Pettengill to return for In Your House tomorrow night on the network. So with that said, I understand this is a very, very short version of the Jam Report. But if you can understand not only the craziness, if you will, of what's been happening around the world as of late, but again, a lot for the better, a lot for the changes, for the greater good, for lack of a better term. But again, it's all for the positive. And I stand with everyone that's been voicing their opinion against police brutality, against those who take advantage of their authority and position against society, regardless of your ethnic background, your gender, sexual orientations, all that. We're all human beings. We all have rights. We all have, and also depending who you believe in, who you follow, free will. And many of us, and I think it's time for a little bit of a recap to refresh your brain, if you will, of what the Constitution says as far as the United States of America goes, what rights you really do have, what freedoms you really do have. And they may not say it, not even in a fine print, but if you take advantage for your own personal gain, any of these rights, then you are in the wrong. So with that said, everyone, if you haven't already, you're going to continue protesting, let your voice be heard, but please do it in a safely and organized manner. Keep in mind that there's still a pandemic going on, so also be safe, wear masks everywhere you go, and sanitize whenever possible. Also, thank you for listening. You can follow me across social media as listed in the description. If you like what you heard, click that like button and click subscribe so you can be updated on the following upcoming JM reports. Also, whenever there will be another Talking with JM episodes as I interview those from the wrestling business. I know it's been a while, but I think it's about time I start reaching out to see who is available and wants to have a little sit-down one-on-one chat with myself. I'll keep you posted on that front. So everyone, be safe, be good, behave, be healthy. Till next time.
I found the strength to open my eyes, leave it all behind. So open your mind and realize that your beautiful world could take my life.